Well, it's time now here on framgångar for today's edition of Focus. When you think of Sweden, images of a well-run, tolerant and moderate society spring to mind. So it's probably surprising to learn that in the country's elections on Sunday, it was the far-right party, the Swedendemocrats, that have turned what we've come to expect from our Scandinavian neighbours on its head. In an historic first, the party have made it into Parliament, which could make life very difficult for the incumbent centre-right coalition. Led by Prime Minister Fredrik Reinfeldt, the centre-right may have won the poll, but on the back of the far-right's success, they've been forced to form a minority government. And they say they refuse to work with the Swedendemocrats, with Prime Minister Reinfeldt saying he'd rather look to the Greens for support. Well, our very own Marcus Carlson was at the celebrations of the Swedendemocrats last night, and from there, he sent us this report.
The new faces of Swedish parliamentary politics. The Swedendemocrats have won their first ever seats in Parliament, and they say they're in an excellent position to promote their agenda.
It feels fantastic. It seems we're going to become kingmakers, and that's the best mandate we could get to achieve what we want. It's what we've been hoping and aiming for.
Leader Jimmy Åkesson is celebrated as a hero. He's been credited for transforming what was seen as an obscure party with neo-Nazi roots into a more polished political group. Still, the Swedendemocrats are sparking heated debate, and they've been accused of promoting racism, something they deny.
We will push for policies to restrict immigration, because we don't think it's right to bring in so many of them without creating the right conditions and give them money and not other groups in society.
Why then are more Swedes turning to the Swedendemocrats? The party almost doubled their share of the vote this election in comparison to the last. Experts say the party's been successful in reshaping its image in many voters' eyes, but also that their rise, to a certain extent, was to be expected.
Swedish society, you have to remember, has been transformed really in the last 20 years. There's been a big influx in immigration, and then in a way, it's surprising that there hasn't been an earlier political reaction to that change in Swedish society.
Even though the Swedendemocrats may have redrawn the political map, it's unclear whether they'll have any actual influence. Once Parliament gets down to business, the other parties from the left, as well as the right, say they won't work with the newcomers.
Well, joining me for today's discussion is Birgitta Orfalli, Associate Professor at the René Descartes University and member of the Study Group for European Culture and Solidarity. We've also got framgångar's Marcus Carlson standing by in Stockholm. Marcus, if I can just start with you, how revolutionary is this election result?
Well, Hannah, Swedish elections are usually quite efficient affairs, but it's really going to take time before we find out this time around how this is going to work, specifically in government. Now, there is a history of minority governments in this country, and it's happened many a times before. So in and of itself, that's nothing new, or that would be nothing new. But the difference this time around, and this is revolutionary, is who holds the potential role as kingmakers. Now, the centre-right, as I said in the report, they have said that they will never work with the far-right, and worst-case scenario, and unless the government does get the support from the traditional opposition when it comes to certain issues, unless that happens, and there is some sort of deal, there could be a snap election, and that hasn't happened since 1958. So there is definitely the potential here, so to speak, of a political revolution.
Professor Orfalli, would you agree with that? A political revolution on the cards?
Yes, we can say that it is a political revolution because the Swedendemocrats is trying to act as an active minority. And this is typically how the extreme right, the far right, does all over Europe. It is a true an attempt a strategical attempt to act and make people react to their influence.
So, given the fact that they have made gains, you really don't think it's that significant?
It is significant because what is significant is that they introduce a sort of tension, even a conflict within society, and they force people to take into account their point of view. And people are just looking for the difference, the gap between their point of view and the minorities. And then the gap is being gets smaller and smaller.
What do you think this result has, or what kind of impact does this result have on Sweden's kind of notoriously moderate and tolerant image?
Well, it is a shock, I would say. The Swedes are known for being very moderate, as you said, and so having this type of movement and party, they are shocked, stressed, but it's not surprising. There has always been extreme right small groups, groupuscules, they would say in French, small groups, which has existed even on the local level, regional level. I think about the Skåne Party, the party of Scania in the south of Sweden. So there has always been small groups which act like active minorities and try to influence society at large.
And if I can just bring you, Marcus Carlson, back in on that, is that what you're seeing? Is that the reaction that you've seen in Stockholm?
Well, definitely. I mean, a lot of people are concerned. I mean, what's going to happen from now on? A lot of people are watching that very, very, very closely. I mean, to some extent, it all depends on the other parties, the other political parties. At the end of the day, the Swedendemocrats, they will only have 20 seats in Parliament, so on paper, they won't have much of a say. Remember that the Swedish Parliament has 349 MPs in it, so the 329 others won't be Swedendemocrats. And if the centre-right comes up with some sort of deal with the traditional opposition, then it's forecast that the Swedendemocrats won't really play a role at all. Still, though, some experts say, I mean, this could really could impact Swedish politics in the kind of way that the other traditional parties would have to take another look at the immigration question. Basically, that when 5% or so of the Swedish population obviously think that immigration is a very important issue and something that society should look at, then the other traditional parties would really have to do so. And that really is perhaps how this result could impact the Swedish political debate and refocus it.
Professor O'Falley, you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree. It is like when Jean-Marie Le Pen said, speaking out loudly what people think secretly. It's exactly the same process.
And I just want to briefly mention that, you know, this isn't just happening in Sweden. This kind of is turning across Europe. We're turning our backs on the left and looking more towards the right. Why is that?
Why? In Europe, because Europe, people are scared by Europe in a way, so they become, they go back to personal privacy, private life, and so on. The big Europe is a big adventure, but they feel stressed and they are scared by the thing.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. My thanks to Marcus Carlson, who is our correspondent in Stockholm, and also my thanks very much indeed to you, Professor O'Falley, for coming in here. Today's Focus. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.